Stress is nothing more than a socially accepted form of mental illness. Richard Carlson. Hello, my name is Rebecca Emerson, and today I am presenting the effects of academic stress on students' mental health. The issue presented today is one of great importance. It will affect whether or not the education of future generations will be similar to ours. Education is a broad and controversial topic. All facets must be addressed when discussing education. Today, I will be addressing one of the many facets of education, its effects on mental health. The idea that is being proposed is the stress of achieving academic success negatively affects the mental health of students. 4 arguments support this statement, and they are as follows. Academic performance is a significant source of stress to students. Academic-related stress steals the focus of students. Poor mental health caused by academic stress can lead to poor physical health, and stress affects how the brain functions. With the foundation of the argument laid out, each point will be discussed and supporting proof will be provided to advance further the validity of these points. The first supporting argument is that academic performance is a significant source of stress to students. Many things feed into having a good academic performance. Turning assignments in on time, testing well, completing projects or large tasks, studying, and having the right resources and supplies for school, to name a few. The issue is that not every student has the ability to achieve these things. Students with learning hindrances have a more challenging time testing than students who do not experience such difficulties. Students with unique circumstances have less time to devote to studying and completing assignments. There is bound to be stress created when the system that determines academic success is not compatible for every student to succeed. Michaela C. Pascoe from the Institute for Health and Sport in Victoria University in Melbourne, Australia writes, quote, "Students in secondary and tertiary education settings face a wide range of ongoing normative stressors, which can be defined as normal day-to-day hassles, such as ongoing academic demands. Accordingly, secondary and tertiary students commonly self-report experiencing ongoing related stress to their education, which we refer to as academic-related stress, such as pressure to achieve high marks and concerns about receiving poor grades. For example, the Organization for Economic Cooperation and Development, or the OECD, conducted a survey in 2017 involving 72 countries and consisting of 540,000 student respondents aged 15 to 16 years. On average, across OECD countries, 66% of students reported feeling stressed about poor grades. 59% reported that they often worry that taking a test will be difficult. 55% of students feel very anxious about school testing, even when they are well prepared. And as many as 37% of students reported feeling very tense when studying. This data demonstrates that education and academic performance are significant sources of stress to students. Therefore, the current narrative review explores the impact of academic-related stress on students' academic performance, mental health, and well-being, end quote. The second supporting argument is that academic-related stress steals the focus of students. Kate Lloyd, the director and co-founder of Evoke Learning, writes, quote, "Stress from a variety of sources, such as chaotic and poorly run classrooms or problems with family or peers, impedes learning. Actively reducing stress in students can improve their well-being and cognitive performance. For example, some Canadian schools have incorporated mindfulness into their curriculum. Students are taught to stop and breathe during periods of peak stress. The breathing helps calm emotions by focusing the student on the breath and helping them learn to pay attention to the moment-by-moment experience without judging or thinking too deeply about it. This dispassionate focus on the presence helps to ward off the stress that arises from meditating on past experiences or feeling anxious about an imagined future." End quote. When students are so stressed about future assignments or past academic failures, their focus is stolen from the present material. The World Health Organization states that students must be healthy and emotionally secure to fully participate in education. The before-mentioned OECD survey reports that anxiety about schoolwork, homework, and tests negatively impacts students' academic performance. The survey highlights that as many as 63% of students reported feeling anxious about tests no matter how well prepared they are. This data shows that poorer academic performance is linked with higher stress levels. Academic-related stress not only steals the focus of students, but in fact leads to poor academic performance. For students to succeed in school, they have to have access to a stress-free school environment. Barry Sade, principal of Roosevelt School in Manville, New Jersey, says, quote, "Everyone should have an opportunity to learn in a positive environment, to enjoy the learning process and feel comfortable and content within it." End quote. Students will not be able to achieve academic success if in an environment that is not suitable for learning. A stressful environment is not one suitable for learning. The third supporting argument is that poor mental health caused by academic stress can lead to poor physical health. Experiencing high levels of academic-related stress as a young person increases the risk of developing preventable physical health problems later in life. Studies show that people experiencing a period of stress, such as during final week in school, were less likely to be physically active. The impact of this is associated with numerous interrelated poor physical health outcomes. Stress is also a significant contributor to poor sleep. In a survey done by Heather Noland of 384 students interviewed, 42% of 9th through 12th graders students reported that stress is a prohibitor to good sleep. Not only does academic-related stress lead to being physically inactive and poor sleep, it can also lead to many forms of substance abuse. Noel R. Leonard writes, quote, "Academic-related stress can increase substance use among young people. In a survey study of 128 grade 11 students attending private schools in the United States, students who reported experiencing high ongoing stress, particularly in relation to academic achievement and the college admissions process, also reported high rates of drug and alcohol use." End quote. Data from surveys done by T.A. Wills shows that similar to high school and college students, self-perceived stress has been reported to be related to substance use in middle school students in the United States. Academic-related stress can contribute to the development of various health issues, including chronic non-communicable diseases due to decreases in physical activity and increases in unhealthy lifestyle habits. The fourth and final supporting argument is that stress affects how the brain functions. Research has discovered that psychological stress affects the thinking skills and brain development of even the youngest student. Kate E. Lloyd writes, quote, "Stress hormones produced during worrisome times can shape the developing circuitry of the brain. They influence the neural connections in the prefrontal cortex that house our executive functions. These functions include our working memory, self-regulation, and cognitive flexibility. Executive functions are critical for reasoning, planning, problem-solving, and for regulating emotions and attention. They are essential to academic success. The amygdala at the center of the brain is the hub of emotional responses. A storm of emotions raging in the amygdala can weaken the prefrontal cortex, hampering our ability to think and learn. Students under considerable stress underperform in school as stress impairs executive function." End quote. If left unattended for an extended period of time, stress begins to alter the circuitry of the brain. There is proof of this in data supplied by Peter Gray. His research shows that children's mental health crises plummet in the summer and rise in the school year. He states, quote, I have presented evidence that children, especially teenagers, are less happy in school than in any other setting where they regularly find themselves. Also, that increased schooling coupled with decreased freedom outside of school correlates over decades with sharply increased rates of psychiatric disorders in young people, including major depression and anxiety disorders." End quote. The data from his research shows that the number of hospital visits made by students to the psychiatric ward is significantly lower in the summer as opposed to during the school year. These numbers have no relation to the weather, as some might think, because the month with the highest amount of hospital visits to the psychiatric ward is the month of May, which is generally a lovely time of year, but also happens to be when most schools have final exams. The available evidence strongly suggests that school and academic-related stress are detrimental to students' mental health, and that a change must be made. That change, of course, being for the betterment of future education. While it seems as if keeping the status quo would have nothing going for it, the argue for academic stress does have three significant counters that need to be addressed in order to continue supporting the validity of the arguments against academic stress. They are as follows. Stress is not always a bad thing. Stress can be a motivator, and our bodies were made to handle stress. The first counter-argument is that stress is not always a bad thing. Hans Selye says, quote, "Stress is not necessarily something bad. It all depends on how you take it. The stress of exhilarating, creative, successful work is beneficial, while that of failure, humiliation, or infection is detrimental." End quote. Chronic stress, defined by the American Psychological Association as the physiological or psychological response to a prolonged internal or external stressful event, has been linked to unhealthy lifestyle choices, smaller brain size, and even an increased likelihood of chronic diseases. However, experts say that in small doses, stress can have some positive effects. Stress can build resilience. Even though it can be overwhelming at times, stress ultimately forces a problem to be resolved. In the effort to resolve stress, strength and confidence are increased, resulting in people feeling less threatened and more in control of their situations. Stress can encourage bonding. In times of stress, people often turn to support groups, which are an excellent place for people to talk about their stresses. Having this open environment for communicating stress also sparks compassion, which in turn releases positive hormones in the brain. Not all stress is bad. A little stress heightens alertness, improves our performance on complex tasks, builds resilience, and promotes bonding. However, too much stress can be detrimental. Stress that stays around for extended periods weakens the immune system and causes high blood pressure, fatigue, depression, anxiety, and even heart disease. Too much stress is harmful in all aspects of life: emotional, physical, relational, and of course, mental. The second counter-argument is that stress can be a motivator. Tim S. Grover says, quote, "Stress keeps you sharp. It challenges you in ways you never imagined and forces you to solve issues and manage situations." End quote. In particular cases, stress can motivate you to get something done in ways that were not before possible. One of the ways stress can be a motivator is that it increases your sense of urgency. Along with increased urgency is heightened awareness of the situations that you are in that cause stress. This keen awareness is a benefit of stress because it means that you are looking beyond surface value information and getting to the source of the issue. When you are aware of the source of stress, you are motivated to resolve it. Stress also motivates you to find a quick solution. For example, if you miss a flight, that change to your plans will encourage you to find an alternate way home. You can be more productive when you are stressed than in times when you are relaxed. But on the other hand, stress is not a good motivator because it causes irrational thinking. Stress that stems from not having enough information or based on an irrational fear is a poor motivator. When your thoughts create stress, all of your effort and resolve, which could be spent trying to eliminate the issue, actually manufactures more stress. When this is the case, you will not get as much done as you possibly could if you were stress-free. The third counter-argument is that our bodies were made to handle stress. Kelly McGonigal, health psychologist and lecturer at Stanford University, shares in her TED Talk, quote, "Over 8 years, 182,000 Americans may have prematurely died because they believed that stress was harming their health. Over 20,000 deaths a year. According to the Centers for Disease Control and Prevention, that would make believing stress is bad for you the 15th leading cause of death in the United States, killing more people than skin cancer, HIV and AIDS, and homicide," end quote. Believing stress is bad for you will cause your body to react to stress. Changing how you perceive stress and convincing yourself that stress can be a good thing will help you prepare your body to handle stress better. Once you realize your body is built to experience stress, you can face stressful situations with confidence. Stressful situations themselves are not harmful. It is how you deal with them that affects your health. When you are placed in a stressful environment, you can start to have a physical reaction to that stress. This includes breathing heavily or your heart pounding. Most of the time, we interpret these physical reactions as the negative results of stress and anxiety. However, if we change our view of these physical reactions and see them as our body being energized and preparing us for the challenge we are facing, we will be less stressed, less anxious, and more confident. C.S. Lewis says, "You are what you believe." When you believe that stress is not harmful to your health, it can actually help strengthen you. However, your body is only meant to handle stress in small bursts. Chronic stress can lead to serious health problems, mentally and physically. Stress can begin weakening your immune system and interfering with the proper functioning of your body's other systems. This makes you more susceptible to illnesses and infections. Over time, constant stress and strain on the mind and body can also lead to heart disease, blood pressure, high blood pressure, diabetes, depression, and anxiety. One now has to ask, what is the plan to make achieving academic stress less stressful? Achieving academic success less stressful. And everyone is right to do so. If someone sees that there is a problem with something that they care about, they will try to offer up a solution to said problem. With everything that has been discussed so far, a reasonable solution can be found by looking at the many arguments that support the statement, the stress of achieving academic success negatively affects the mental health of students. First off, the plan's main goal should be to protect the mental health of students. Kate Middleton says, quote, "A child's mental health is just as important as their physical health and deserves the same quality of support," end quote. The plan is this. Schools must include mental health education, just as they do physical education, into their curriculum. If students are better educated on their mental health, they will recognize the importance of taking care of it. This mental health education class will be added to the already existing physical education curriculum and therefore needs no extra funding. Also, schools need to make it mandatory for students to visit with the school counselor at least once every 2 weeks. It is required by law in the United States that all schools, public or private, provide students with a way to contact a mental health professional. The issue lies in that though these resources and professional counselors are available, students do not know about them or do not have the time to go and see them. This quote from Hannah Connors addresses this very issue. Quote, "Too many freshmen enter campus without the knowledge of where to access these resources and support in times of need, not only in their first year, but also throughout their entire college experience," end quote. If schools made it mandatory for students to visit with the counselor and schedule a free period for them to do so, that way they do not miss out on class time, then these materials would no longer be wasted. This too will need no extra funding, seeing as the school counselors are already currently employed. It will only take a change in the scheduling. Both aspects of this plan will be set in place by the U.S. Department of Education. To bring everything to a close and give clarity to the topic, everything that has been discussed within the context of this thesis will now be summarized. First, the problem of academic-related stress and its effects on students is prevented. The thesis statement, the stress of achieving academic success negatively affects the mental health of students, is given, and the arguments for this statement are brought up in an orderly fashion. Academic performance is a significant source of stress to students. Academic-related stress steals the focus of students. Poor mental health caused by academic stress can lead to poor physical health, and stress affects how the brain functions. The content of said arguments is then discussed and proven why they are the valid arguments to be made in defense of the thesis. Then the opposite position of the argument is brought up, the main points of which are: stress is not always a bad thing, stress can be a motivator, and our bodies were made to handle stress. These points are then refuted by proving how they are invalid in multiple ways, from how their arguments compare to the arguments in favor of the thesis and how statistics are against their arguments. Now the argument is coming to a close, and the discussion will surely continue in the future. It is crucial to change, or at the very least improve, how the process of one works. Not doing anything about this will lead the students of the future to wonder why and how the people of the past let their education get to such a low standard. Many schools, colleges, and universities all agree that education needs to improve in several ways. One of the simplest methods to begin this improvement process is to make achieving academic success less stressful, and for schools to begin actively taking steps to improve the mental health of their students. After all, it is for the betterment of future education. Thank you.